Hey, Jim, can you hear us okay?
Mm-hmm. Can you hear me?
Yes.
All right. How are we doing?
Oh, say that again?
Short?
We're just about ready to get going. Let's see here. Let me just bring up some notes.
Great.
Okay. All right, we can go ahead and get started. It's August 5th, and this is the Personnel and Ordinance Committee. And the time is 4:02 p.m. And we have Ron Wakefield and Jim Harper with us. Committee member Carl Schnicker won't be with us today.
Oh,
Okay. So first up on the agenda for today, we'll have Anne presenting information about our accessory dwelling unit incentive program that we're looking to get in place. And this is a program that's has grant funding support. And I'll kick it over to Anne.
Yeah, so we were awarded the ADU grant from DOLA. Part of this grant is to hire an architectural consultant to create pre-approved ADU plans. Another part of this grant is to provide at least 7 incentive payments / waivers in the value of $4,270 to property owners building ADUs. And our goal with this program is to make it easier for property owners in Silverton to build ADUs. In the proposed ordinance, we've created an incentive tier structure to help determine the criteria and the corresponding incentives with each sort of level of the tier. And so it's coming in front of you today to sort of flesh out what do we want the terms and the incentives of each tier to be. Do we want to charge a nominal fee for the pre-approved plans? And then sort of what is staff's next steps as far as moving this ordinance through, getting community engagement, or going to the board for full discussion. Would it be helpful for me to walk through the tier levels before discussing? It's on page 4 of the ordinance, and I don't have the packet pulled up.
Page 7 of the packet.
Yeah. Or we could start with the question of, do we want to charge a fee for the pre-approved plans? And if so, what do we want that to be?
What's the normal fee for it?
Pre-approved plans? We don't have pre-approved plans in Silverton. And then in other jurisdictions, it's to be the idea of charging a fee would be that it creates an incentive. So in tier 1, if we have an ADU developer, let's say it's a second homeowner, and they want to build an ADU, they can get these plans for free if they agree to not short-term rent it for 5 years. If we don't charge a fee, then that's kind of just taking away that incentive.
Where'd the 5 years come from?
And that is just a starting point. So that's what we're going to talk about today. This is mirrored off of Grand Junction's ADU program. And so, yeah, these are just all starting points, and that's exactly what we're gonna discuss today is,
Okay.
do we want it to be 5 years, 7 years? What does that look like?
What are your thoughts?
Me?
Is 5 year just the 5 year? Is that?
Well, so that first tier would just be getting that pre-approved plan. Let's say we charge like $100 for these plans.
Mhm.
If you agree to not short-term rent it for 5 years, you basically just get that $100 for free. The next level is, say you have a local who resides here and they want to build an ADU on their property. They can either own or occupy the house, the primary structure, or the ADU. And they would agree to prohibit a short-term rental for 7 years. And that's when they would get that $4,270 plus the pre-approved plans. And then the next tier is same as before, so owner occupied, short-term rental is prohibited for 7 years. But if they rent either the primary structure or the ADU to someone who earns less than, let's say, 140% AMI, but we can determine what that AMI level is. They'd get the pre-approved plans for free, that $4,000 incentive. And then their tap and plant investment fees waived. And the legal mechanism that would allow that fee waiver for the tap and plant investment fee is from section 13-1-50 of the code that I think we adopted in 2025, early 2025. That says that applicants can request fees to be waived with board approval. So that's sort of the mechanism that would end if property is owner occupied, short-term rental is prohibited for 7 years, and the tenant of one of the dwellings is below a certain AMI. And this is all up for debate and conversation on what is meaningful and what our goals are. But we just wanted to put something in front of you so that we have something to work from. And yeah.
Ron, you have anything?
Yeah, I'd like to see it owner occupied, the full-time resident. Before you give them any incentives.
I think that's what's implied in the owner occupied.
Doesn't say full-time resident though.
Owner occupied is defined in the beginning. It's a piece of real
Well, it
estate.
says in the form of a deed, but
It says a piece of real estate in which the person who holds the title also uses a home or ADU located on the property as the owner's primary residence and lives on site. Does that satisfy?
Would cover that. I'd like to see it I'd like to see a 10-year.
For which tier? For the $4,000?
For any of them. That way you get a little commitment to them for the rental. Did it 5 years and then they do something different with it.
Yeah, I think the idea behind the tiers is so that this is more approach, we want it to be appetizing to a large part of our population. I hear what you're saying, and I think we can absolutely make maybe tier 3 10 years or even tier 2. But I think there's value in having different levels of incentive. And we can bump it up to 10 years for anything that we're giving the $4,000 incentive fund. Is that what you're saying?
Well, let me back up and ask you a question. On these ADUs, are we charging water and sewer tap fees?
So it depends on how the owner wants to build it. Our current land use code does not require with every new ADU to have a new tap, so you can do a utility extension from your primary structure to your ADU. So you can circumvent the fee entirely.
Okay,
And so that's where the value of the incentive funds comes in, because then you can use that $4,000 to pay for the utility extension cost. Instead of the plant investment fee, but it's up to the property owner and the site constraints of whether or not they are doing a new tap or just extending their utilities.
personally, I disagree with that because they are using our facilities and they're getting by without the fees to help with the upgrade on the new system when it's due.
I'm not proposing, this is how we currently operate.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah.
I know. But in future, if this promotes more ADUs, I think we need to look at getting them to pay the tap fees. And if that could be handled through this DOLA funds, then that would be okay with me. But I still think we need to reinforce our infrastructure with those fees.
So currently for an ADU for tap and investment fees for water and sewer, it's $11,881. And that's a pretty hefty expense. I want to say in I don't have it in front of me, but a significant portion of our property owners in Silverton are below the poverty line. And so it's a balance of, continuing to invest in our infrastructure, but also if we have our owner occupied units for low income folks, we're trying to make building an ADU as feasible as possible. And so that's where the income restriction comes in, prohibiting short-term rental comes in. This is where the tier structure comes in. So we're not just giving away, waiving all of the fees for everybody, right? We want to tailor it so that we are still collecting fees when possible, but also really targeting, our owner occupied homes who want to build an ADU to help expand our rental. Jim?
Yes. I like the tier system. I think it's needed. It gives options, at least the illusion of options. I don't know if 10 years is too far out. Maybe that's just me. I like 5 and 7, or maybe the big one is 5, 7, 10. I don't know. But I do like the tier system, and I totally understand that we're trying to work with the public. And these aren't folks with deep pockets. Why do we have ADUs in the first place? Because we're trying to create incentives. So I get that. I like this policy. I like this. I like this approach.
And what I will say, in case it wasn't clear in the memo, the only time that we would consider waiving the plant tap fees and plant investment fees would be that very top tier. And then everyone below that could either use that $4,000 to pay a part of those fees, or if they're doing a utility extension, they can use it for something else. So this isn't like a blanket waiver for everybody, and we're still collecting that $4,000 if they do go the tap fee route.
I'm good. Ron,
Yes.
you said are you still wanting 10-year?
Well, I think that provides more of a commitment from the homeowners.
Yeah, and 10 years for that, tier 3, where we have that, 5, 7, and 10, that big commitment where they are, having the most incentive. Does that seem reasonable, or?
Say it again.
So if we did want to consider, increasing the commitments of, short-term rental, so instead of applying 10 to all tiers, looking at, a 5, 7, and then a 10-year requirement for that tier 3.
Yeah, I'd be good with that.
All right.
Because tier 3 is where like the town is actually giving up something. Tier 1 and 2 is just like strategically
Mhm.
waiving fees, but not actually, because we'd be paying ourselves with those grant funds.
I agree with Ron.
Oh, I think we're having some trouble hearing you, Jim.
Oh, no.
That's better.
Am I out or back or where?
Now you're back.
You're back. You're good.
I,
We spoke too soon. You're out.
Jim, you're out again.
Give a minute, see if situation improves.
How do you monitor the household income?
It's the same way that we do buyer and or tenant qualification. So we'd be using, it's called HUD Part 5, and it's how you calculate income. And so if we did this tier 3 of 140% AMI once a year, likely the housing director would income verify the tenant.
And how do you do that?
You collect,
Do you look at their tax returns?
you look at tax returns, that Part 5 lays out what's considered income and not. But yeah, tax return, employer verification, or like statement of benefits. You're looking at assets.
Okay.
Yeah. And we still need to decide on what do we want that AMI level to be for tier 3 in our land use code. Oh gosh, it's 140% for ownership, it's 3 for rental. I don't know, I'll look it up. Can't remember off the top of my head. Hi, Jim. You wanna try again?
what was the question?
You were saying something, but none of us know what.
Well, that's okay. It was probably something very profound, which only I heard. Um, no, the tier system works. I like this. And I like the fact that we're finally, after this time period, going to go into having these pre-made plans. It's something that we've talked about, and I'm glad we're doing it. And you lost me again, didn't you?
I can hear you still.
Oh, okay. Well, as long as you can hear me, I guess.
Okay.
Yeah,
Yeah, that's all. That's what matters.
Jim, we were just talking about how we need to decide on what AMI level the tenant will have to be for tier 3. And our land use code for renters is 80%. And it also does outline that rent payments should be less than 30% of their monthly income.
Mm-hmm.
So we could keep it at 80% because these are renters, long-term renters. But that could potentially really pigeonhole the property owner if they take out a loan, construction loan on the ADU, and the amount that they can charge at 80% AMI wouldn't cover their loan payments. So it might actually be wise to increase it.
What
to
is the
100.
suggested
I don't know.
4%?
Then the question is, does it become affordable for the tenant?
Right.
And I'm sure if you reduce that, whatever the owner's payments are gonna be, that rent's not gonna cover it.
Right.
Mm.
Which brings me to another question. How again do we monitor the rental payment? Will the housing director have to verify that too?
mhm.
Okay.
Yeah, they'll review the lease annually, do income verification annually. And with income verification, you get bank statements, so you'll be able to see, so long as they're paying with card or check, that these rent payments are going out. And we could probably require in our covenant that the property owner pays, that we have the right to, or that they need to provide proof of the amount of rent that they're collecting.
Well, I certainly don't want to set up folks to fail. So we
Right.
have to be smart when we choose that.
So for 2026, for 0 bedroom at 80% AMI, it's 1,300 a month is maximum rent. For 1 bedroom, it's 1,400. And then if you jump up to 100% AMI, a studio or 0 bedroom is 1,700. And that is really expensive, in my opinion, for a studio. So yeah, it's a balance of, the question is, would rent payment of 1,300 a month or 1,400 be enough for the construction loan? And that is hard to say. But maybe I'll do some research with local builders in town and how much it's been,
Cost per square foot.
cost per square foot. And see if anyone who has built and rents an ADU is open to sharing what their
Mhm.
payments are. And yeah, I think this policy in particular needs quite a bit of community engagement. And I think it'll be challenging, but I think I'll do, and whoever my successor is, will have to do a lot of like direct outreach to people who are both interested in building ADUs and folks who already own ADUs and folks who build ADUs. So I think what I'm hearing is let's increase short-term rental prohibition of tier 3 to 10 years. And then I will do some research and run some numbers on what the AMI should be. And then thoughts on charging for pre-approved plans.
I know we discussed in years past that we would, and then we also discussed that we wouldn't. So this is really a conversation for everyone.
Mhm.
I think there should be a minimum fee,
Mhm. And we
500
could
or 1,000.
Yeah, we could, like, our budget for the pre-approved plan sets is 72,000. When you divide that by 3, it's like 24,000 per plan value. And so even if we charge like $400, that's
It's a big benefit.
big savings.
Yeah.
And then the other question is, does that $400 recirculate into the program for future incentive payments? Or does that just go into the general fund? And potentially like connect to the housing authority or housing director's salary? Yeah, the question of where that money goes is up for discussion as well. Because right now this ordinance is scheduled to sunset once we've made those 7 incentive payments of $4,000. So if we could keep it going, that would be great. That's kind of a hard piece of policy to write, though, if you don't know how many ADUs, like how many people are going to pay for these pre-approved plans.
I'd like to see the money stay in the program,
Mhm.
but I understand that sometimes it goes other places.
Mhm. I think this is a cool program and hopefully like a valuable incentive to help folks build ADUs. To me, it makes sense to recirculate it in the program. Just might require some amending this in the future.
Yeah, I was wondering if like we would envision, based on how many ADUs are being built with these plans, so how much revenue we're bringing in, especially right if we're charging a fairly small amount,
Mhm.
400 or 500, 1,000, we probably might need to rethink the incentive and how much we're bringing in, how much we can give back into the program,
Mhm.
once the grant funds are expended. But
Especially if we're considering waiving the
yes,
plan fee waiver, because say the first 7 applicants that we get all are tier 2, then no one's paying back into the fund. Yeah, that's interesting. So maybe we remove that. Maybe we just always charge, like, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'll run some numbers for everyone and see what would be
Please do.
sustainable. Okay. Is this something that you want to come back to P&O before it goes to the board, or once I get some more information and numbers, open this up to board comments and comment?
I don't think it needs to come back before us again.
Okay.
But maybe Ron feels different.
I'm good with it, Jim.
Great. Anything else?
That's it.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Great. So
Thank you, Ann.
next on the agenda, we're returning to the conversation about portable storage units. So back in July, we discussed with the P and O committee that, we've been receiving input from residents, both, folks that have an interest in utilizing, zircons for long-term storage. Currently, they're only allowed, on a temporary basis. And also receiving comments from members of the public, regarding the appearance of zircons, within town. So, at the July meeting, we received, feedback from the committee to provide some examples of what, potential shielding, camouflaging of zircons would look like in town. And, as well as information, since we have the situation where zircons that are currently in town for long-term use, have been, grandfathered in. And, you know, being new, I don't exactly understand, and we don't have complete clarity about how that process happened. But I wanted to get some information on, and if this is something that, the town wants to pursue, if any, aesthetic standards could be applied to the grandfathered in zircons, and, received, legal advice that those standards could be applied to existing zircons. And that if this is something that we pursue, either, phased compliance period, or a variance or hardship clause for those existing, those existing zircons, could be included in any policy. So with all that said, I'll have Bevan walk us through, the examples that he's put together of, what potential options, for standards could look like.
Okay, so this is an attempt to provide options. There are many of them out there for cladding and camouflaging shipping containers. Probably the easiest is painting them, which goes a long way. There is a photo here of a container being enclosed in what turns out to look like a shed with a side entrance. And the painted version has windows in it and a door, a standard man door, but that's not necessary. There's options of applied wood siding and battens visible on the next page. And it's just another way to screen that container. That could also be used to grow vines on, or a lot of options. Third page, vertical roughs on wood. That's pretty common to our area. That's applied with two horizontal nailers that are behind the container. And that one looks like it has some a roof on it as well. So it's sort of a shed, low pitch, maybe a 212 pitch roof on it. Beside that is really actually looks like a container home with some wood painted and some wood vertical siding. And then we get into what a painted, factory shipping container looks like, and an example of a modified home out of that container, or tiny home. Next to that is the container wrapped completely in wood, like a shed, clapboard siding, gable roof. And below that looks like they're at the beach. Probably has some solar on the roof and vertical spaced siding, almost like a pallet. And I showed some container homes. Didn't really want to entertain that, but I did want to show that there are examples of how that can be done. Just two simple examples, one contemporary, the other more traditional gable dormer style. And then there's recent mention of solar arrays on containers. So there are regions, and SMPA is using them to bring in, and they put solar on the roof, and then they have solar on the sides and mechanical batteries and mechanical equipment on the inside. It being a watertight and secure container, it's pretty ideal for them. I've had a request for someone in the county to do something similar and have it be built into the side of the hill to help it kind of disappear, but also be modular and less impactful. Beside that is an example of a garage, pretty cool, with what looks like possibly a deck above. If you can imagine that, like a sun deck. And then here's an example of covered and built-in storage above and below ground. One is storage in the containers and then protected from sun and rain by that kind of tent structure. And then the other is building a zircon into the ground with some of the cement blocks in front of it and beside it. So as far as costs go, painting could be 5 to 10 gallons for like a 20 foot container. That's about 250 in materials if you double coat it, depending upon what type of paint you use. As far as applying wood siding, it could be as simple as a fence around that container. And I got averages of 50 to 85 per lineal foot for that. And those numbers, that 3 to 48, are based on a 20 foot container. So that's probably the most common size. Building a structure around and over could be 5,000 materials, and it could be 15 to 20K to build. That's definitely more of a commitment, and it's got to be more room on the property to do that. But it'd be a way to integrate safe, secure storage. And then just for reference, container homes they're averaging about 150 to 400 per square foot to build out as a home now. And honestly, that's half the cost of what it costs to build a wood stick framed home in town. And I think I was told that Durango's up to 1,000 a square foot, which is what I thought Telluride was up to. But this.
So would you recommend this over an ADU?
I mean, could possibly be an ADU, but I do think about the size of it. So they're 8 feet wide. If you doubled them up, they're 16 feet wide. That 16 feet wide could fit on a single lot, the 2,500 square foot lot. The advantage of these is you can move them without a safety car and without special permitting from CDOT, and they're the main box is there. And they're strong. They can survive in our environment, as we know. But I don't, that would be another animal to tackle as far as getting approval to build with shipping containers in town. I'm not opposed to it, but I think we gotta start with the containers that are here and those that are requesting to bring them in. I mean, they're excellent storage, and we're all aware of how valuable that is.
I think that's the point I'm getting at is these are the ones that I've seen around town are for storage.
Right.
I don't think we want to build windows and doors and decks on them. It's valuable
saying you
information
do
because I
that.
do
I mean,
think in the
that's-
future, container homes are actually super cool. I
Yeah.
personally like them.
Right, so, if, whether,
But
you
the
know,
original purpose for this. Sorry, the original purpose for this was that someone complained and we needed to camouflage and shield, correct?
Yeah, there's also the request to have a permanent zircon on their property. So it's both sides. And they're allowed temporarily for construction. The challenge and what I've seen is they suddenly appear in town on someone's property. It's difficult to monitor all the time. And then you start questioning, well, was that grandfathered in or was it brought in, outside of that moratorium? An easier way to deal with it is if people want to bring them in, we just require that they be shielded. And I don't know what that shielding looks like yet. That's why I'm presenting it. But it's one way to minimize the negative visual impact for those that perceive it as that.
Ron, what do you have?
My opinion on this is if they've been grandfathered in, they were approved by the building inspector previously, leave them alone.
They weren't all approved. I mean, I'm questioning.
Approved, need to be left alone.
I'm trying to address community members' requests and complaint about zircons and the way they're impacting their resale value of their homes.
Approved by the previous building inspector.
Okay.
They should be left alone.
Do we have a way of?
Past that, go ahead and if you paint them, that's going to be an issue as well because these units were baked with baked paint. Now you come in and you brush it, and it's going to last maybe 1, maybe 2 years. It's going to flake off, and it's a continual process of painting. Same way if you put wood on them. You put the wood up, you're going to have to maintain the wood every couple of years. If those structures have the baked finish, they're not going to peel, they're not going to look nasty, they're going to be okay. Now, if new ones come in, they need to get with you, prove it through your process of however you do it. And then it's going to be permanent. If you allow that, then you need to discuss with them about how they're going to shield it from the neighbor that doesn't like it.
So this is prior to my being the building official. And So those that have zircons on their property, do they have proof that they were permitted?
It was verbal, or there may have been some conversations through McDougal, but he would not allow it to happen unless he approved it.
Okay, I'm trying to find out from Lisa Deer and Mark Rivas and a couple others that were here at that time to verify what the code stated and when it was allowed. Just,
The building inspector approved it. They should take care of it.
all right, was board approval not required at the time?
Building inspector approved it.
Board approval was not required, no.
Okay.
Well, and I guess that goes back to my original thought, which is we don't have this paperwork on file. Is that what we're assuming?
So far, searches not brought up any documentation, but that's not to say that we won't keep looking. We do have some other sources, some other folks that were around at that time to communicate with, but so far, no documentation has turned up.
And it may or may not matter, if the board or the committee's decision is to allow the pre-existing ones to be, it doesn't really address some of the complaints, but then it may or may not be worthwhile to allow more containers in, but that's totally up to the board.
One of the questions from our last meeting was how many zircons do we have in town? Did we find that out?
I don't recall that being a request, but I can certainly find out. It's going to take a little driving. My guess is upwards of 20.
Another opinion I have on this, it's similar to when houses were built, say, 10 years ago. The studs were 24-inch centers and that was approved. And now all of a sudden we've made a change that says, oh, we want them on 16-inch centers. So then you're saying everybody has to come in and redo things. That would be the same thing with these zircons. You put one where it was approved, and now we're saying you can't do that, you got to change it.
Well, 24-ounce center to 16-ounce center has all to do with structural.
That's just an example.
Okay. As far as the zircons, I'm not saying that they have to go. I'm just trying to address the concerns and complaints of residents who have been told by prospective buyers that they are declining to purchase because of the presence of commercial shipping containers adjacent to their homes. I know it's just, I'm not making them up. This is more work for me. It is just addressing concerns of the community. And that's what I'm trying to find a resolution to that. I'm not trying to make everyone's life more difficult or more expensive.
Well, it would be if you had to do that to these containers. So again, my opinion is leave the existing ones alone and then deal with the new ones that come in on however you see fit according to our code. And if the code needs to be
That's my
changed,
opinion as
make
well.
those possible dwellings.
So it's sounding like, so maybe there is the appetite to consider, so currently only allow zircons on a temporary basis, maybe an appetite for allowing zircons, new zircons to come in on a permanent storage basis? Is that what we're,
On a what can,
for long-term permanent basis? And if that is something that we would proceed with, right, then we could address, aesthetic standards.
Yeah, I mean, they're allowed, permitted for temporary use during construction. And then I have to, there's a timeline on that and, then they have to be removed at that point in time.
The other question I had was regarding zoning. These problematic zircons, the one or the one that individuals are calling about, what zones are they in?
Most are, I think, in R2, which was ED before that. But they were apparently, according to Lisa, they were allowed in R1A for a period of time, I think prior to her tenure. And that seems odd to me because that's residential, prime residential locations. But I'll certainly get more historic information on this and bring it. That is taking me a little bit longer.
Well, I say we table this until we get more information.
Okay, is there any other information on this topic that you request I obtain?
Well, I would like to see how many zircons are in town and what
Okay.
zone they're in.
Yep.
Because a zircon to someone's property is extra added value. So I can't imagine someone saying that it's devaluing their property, but it's possible.
Well, it's not.
I have a real difficult time. I have a real difficult time telling someone that's been approved by the town of Silverton that they are no longer approved simply because of change of management. I don't like that. Because these have been grandfathered in. And it's the right thing to do is uphold what's been before us.
All right, and for the record, you or your company owns zircons in town?
I'm sorry?
For the record, do you or your company have zircons in town?
Grand Imperial does not own zircons in town, Bevan Harris. I
Okay,
think that's what you're asking me.
okay. But the train does.
The train owns 2 zircons in commercial zone. Yes.
Okay, great. And Ron, do you
That
have
were
zircons?
approved,
I have
that were
one that's been
approved by
grandfathered in.
Bill McDougal back in 2016.
Okay,
I believe about 2017 is when McDougal grandfathered ours in
okay.
and approved it. So I think, and I want to get your opinion on this, Jim, anything that's been here grandfathered in, approved by the building inspector should be left in. This should only
That
deal
is
with-
my opinion.
This should only deal
And
with,
the reason why I asked about the zoning last meeting and this meeting is because the zoning matters. The zoning matters. And we've had this conversation numerous times over the years. And Bevan, before you took this position, we had this conversation before. So I feel that we don't want to penalize the people that did it right the first time and have them go through this whole process again when they did it right, when they did it correctly. And
Understood. I totally get it. And I apologize for not having zoning information. I don't recall that request, and I'll get that as well as the number in town.
And it is helpful to hear that these might have been, right, it sounds like this may have just been verbal approvals and, sheds light on why, finding documentation has been a challenge. So that is, good to hear that history.
Yeah, I'd like to see the whole thing dropped, but
Well, I think what it could be useful to get input on is, we're hearing loud and clear, not wanting to, apply any standards to the grandfathered in zircons. Again, based on some community feedback about, other residents having an interest in using zircons on a permanent basis, not just temporary basis for construction. What are your thoughts on allowing new long-term zircons to be available for residents?
if they go with the appropriate setbacks, if they are containers in good condition, if they don't obstruct, well, that would be the setbacks. I would say those two main things I'd be concerned about.
Mhm.
You have any input, Jim?
I'm for this discussion, number one. If there's only a little bit of frustration in my voice, it's because I feel like we've been having this discussion since 2016, because that's when these things were approved. Going forward and having them assimilate into our community, absolutely. I think that I don't think it's beyond the pale to ask for them to be colored a certain way. I don't even know what that color palette looks like. What is the color palette? Is it white? Is it green? Is it white and green? Is it something that's not annoying? I don't know what that means. So I think that has to be discussed. The lattice work or whatever we're calling it from the photos, I think they're nice. The vertical wood siding, I think that's nice. You look at a 10 by 12 shed, you're looking at $2,500. And that's not including transportation. If you're looking at a zircon that's 8 feet wide by 20 feet long, it's $4,500 to $5,500. To paint one of these with Rust-Oleum paint is 20 gallons. I think that's what was stated. It's roughly $528, $530 just for the paint. I don't think it's out of the realm of possibility to ask for people in certain zones and that are new, that these units are being new to the community, to say, hey, listen, you're more than welcome to have these as long as you have these requirements attached to them, and that's it. They need to paint them, they need to have a little fence or something, that's fine. But to penalize the people that were already approved before, that is my hang up on this whole thing. But other than that, I have no problem having that conversation with anyone. That if someone has a shed, whether it's a 5x7 or a 10x12, it should look like it's a part of the community. It should not be some outrageous color. Like the one in the example that was blue and fading, the Minsk. I think that's terrible. I would agree that doesn't look good in my neighborhood.
I guess this brings up another question then. If we have sheds made out of wood, the paint's all peeled off and they're dilapidated, do we require the homeowners to paint those? Because they're not attractive?
Well, and Ron, that goes back to Dana Kranker and the good taste police. Is that who we are? And I agreed with her statement then. Is that what our job is?
Oh, is that where we're headed? I mean,
So
Good and plenty.
Well, I think, what we can do is, just at the very least, follow up this conversation with that additional information, that Bevan can provide about the number of zircons in town, what zone,
Mhm.
and, perhaps, right, just a little bit more maybe for, staff's, benefit more than anything, a bit more history on, yeah, for approval, et cetera, just so we have all that information. Um, and, yeah, I think that's a good place for us to return to. And then, I think still certainly might have room for a bit more conversation. Again, we're hearing this desire for this long-term storage. It's an affordable option for people. But really, how much do we want to be, policing the aesthetics? We have that ability as a town, but right, is that, is that our focus? Um, so does that sound like good next steps for
Yeah,
everyone?
got it.
Okay. Excellent. Right. Well, moving on to our last agenda item then for the afternoon. So again, at our July meeting, we discussed campers in town and the difficulties that Bevan law enforcement have for enforcing camper regulations. So what Bevan has put together is a visual example of the RV identification system that would help him to enforce our current camper code. So, yeah, I'll let Bevan take it away, but yeah, just looking for feedback on, on this proposed system for better enforcement of current code.
Yeah, it's more, thank you. It's identifying resident campers and differentiating between guest campers and illegal campers in town, as well as workforce housing campers. So currently, workforce housing campers are probably the most regulated in the code. They're able to stay in town. It requires a one-time fee of $500 for a temporary use permit and allows continuous camping from May 15th through October 15th. Residents and their guests are allowed to camp on their property in town for up to 20 days annually. Registration for an RV permit as a resident we could have be free and cost $100 at an undeveloped property site, if that's what is decided. Undeveloped sites would require proof of black and gray water removal and water and power access. And water and power access could be water and tanks and power. It could be a generator within allowed hours. Residents would be issued a removable permit sticker to be placed on their personal camper indicating permit number, date of issuance, and date of expiration, along with a hang tag that containing the same information to be shared with their guests. Any campers parked overnight without a permit sticker or hang tag can easily be identified and ticketed accordingly. Applications could be submitted online and physical permits obtained at town hall office during the week or mailed to them prior to their stay. The process will enable code enforcement and the sheriff's department to quickly verify if campers are authorized to stay in town legally. Permitting enables us to better and more accurately regulate who and how long campers are staying. Without these identifying permit stickers and hang tags, it's very difficult to differentiate between guests, employees, residents, and illegal campers. Below are some examples. We can't. Sorry. Yeah, I can. Please stand by.
Let me refresh the page.
There you go.
Don't click on it, just scroll down.
Nothing.
With, when you scroll.
Okay. Try that. So RV camper hang tags and removable stickers are available as options. They can be numbered. We can have the issuance dates on them. We could also create a RV ordinance info card so that guests and residents could understand and have access to the current codes. So in a nutshell, it's difficult. The hardest part is to identify who who's allowed to be here. And it's even difficult to identify if residents are staying in the camper or it's a visitor from out of town that isn't staying with a family here. And it was a request of many people, not so much this summer, but years past, of how are we going to monitor RVs in town and make sure that they're abiding by local codes and laws. And I understand that. So I'm just trying to present options of how to help monitor and identify. And if anyone has other ideas, I'm completely open to it.
Ron?
Jim, didn't we approve all this last year?
Which part?
Well, most of it, I think there's an error here in this part where, let's see what it says. Undeveloped sites would require proof of black and gray water removal and water and power access. I thought we passed that where you had to have a water tap and an electric tap to be able to do that. Maybe I'm incorrect, but that's what I remember.
I don't think you are. I thought that's what drove a lot of people from the single lots using Steve Pendleton as the example.
Yeah, you guys are correct. That is what we passed last year in our RV code.
So and I remember 2 years ago, Lucy, you drove. We went around and came up with all these ideas about color coding and dollar amounts for permits.
Yes.
I thought we had done all that. No?
Yeah,
Okay.
we've passed a lot of this. I think Bevan is looking for direction on specifically the tags for RVs. And what else, Bevan?
Yeah, it's the purpose of permitting visible stickers that can either be on a windshield or the side of or back of the vehicle so that sheriff's department and myself can quickly identify them and versus you know, a guest who wants to stay in town or
Well,
at.
I'm all for it, Bevan. I just
Okay.
thought we had already discussed this a while back, but
We did
I'm all
this-
for this. I think the color coding is what's needed.
Okay.
A quick reference that's in someone's window is a great thing.
We did discuss it. Currently, the code, unless I'm wrong, primarily focuses on workforce housing in regards to campers and RVs in town. So my issue with camping on undeveloped property is that's not addressed in the code. And it's probably one of the biggest problems that I face in town because it attracts more campers to those spots. And so that was what I had asked prior and we tabled it. So that's why I'm coming back with it.
And so having this hang tag sticker system though, should be able to help address that, right? So, if it's a resident and family, friend, they have that certain tag. And then any other campers that are attracted to these undeveloped sites because they think it's allowable, then that should be very identifiable as they don't have that hang tag. So this, while we're not, looking at any code adjustments at this time, that should help to mitigate that.
Yeah, I mean, we can have a different color code for workforce housing.
Yeah.
Residents for, and their guests. And then if the town decides they want to permit, visitors for 72 hours, which some towns do, we can have that be a different color and charge them.
Well, we already have 20 days on the books.
Right. I have
And that
no way
goes
of.
that goes the same for private property, whether it's developed or undeveloped. It's 14 days in the county. And they allow them in the county for an undeveloped piece of land for 20 days as well.
Right. I just have no way of identifying like how long they've been there.
Well,
You would drive around and see
I
it,
don't
wouldn't you?
know. I guess that's where it comes to what we've said as the board, and even going back to Bill McDougall. I don't think any of us envisioned this as as part of the job description for you to be driving around inspecting everyone's RVs. Like that to me, I think is a colossal. I think there's better ways for you to spend your time.
I fully agree. I get pushed on it and I'm presenting this as a quick way to resolve it so that I can immediately identify if a camper is here legally without having to investigate further. I'm not, if the town is okay with me not enforcing it, then I can back off. But I have, obviously I want to enforce what I can. And this is one of the ways, just like tags on a license plate, to identify if someone is current, and it saves me time versus not permitting it, not marking it, And, yeah,
We are.
Ron, I've been talking. What do you got?
Like I said, I thought we had this set up where you wouldn't have generators in town running all day, but I guess I misunderstood that or read it incorrectly.
No.
What part are you referring to? Because that is what we decided last year at our RV discussion, and that's why we require RVs to be placed on a property with electric.
And they need to, and if they do run any piece of equipment, they need to adhere to the hours of our sound ordinance.
Right.
Correct.
yeah, that's what I was referring to.
No. Well, I'm going to go back to my previous statement this past year and the year before that and the year before that, which is if someone's on their own property, I have a real hard time asking them to buy a permit when they're on their own property. Or even having to drive to town hall to get a permit when they're on their own personal property. But I'm one vote. I'm one vote.
Yeah, Ron, do you have a specifically on the, requiring tags for, you, the property owners
I
or,
haven't put the tag on it. I agree with Jim. I don't think property owners should have to pay for it.
I'm not asking property owners to pay for it. I said that would be free for them. I proposed charging for undeveloped land or obviously workforce housing is charged because they're utilizing utilities. And then the question is whether we'd even want to make on-street camping available or off-street for visitors, that are unaffiliated with town residents. So I brought it up because it's the other 50% or 80% that we have to deal with. Yeah, and I never stated that I wanted to charge residents for, permits on RVs. Just want to make that clear. Undeveloped property in town I'm having to monitor it where there are additional campers that go into the property. If the town feels like that's not a concern, then we can do that. I deal with it a lot in the Y whistle stop along the river and areas where you think it's outside of town limits, but it's not. Yes. Yeah. And part of the issue there is it attracts more campers, and I don't always know how safe they're being. I mean, but yeah, well, and part of this whole permitting is for the sheriff so that they can quickly and easily identify who's legal and who isn't. I've had that request from the sheriff many times, which is why we're here.
Well, we've got support for the visual identification, the hang tags and stickers. And while that doesn't necessarily solve all the problems that you've been encountering, sounds like it'll go a long way for both you and the sheriff's office for, identification and then possible enforcement.
Mhm.
So, okay. 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 Well, great. Yeah, we've got support for the hang tags and stickers, and we can go ahead and plan to move forward with that.
Okay.
Okay. Well, that wraps up the agenda for this afternoon. Any parting thoughts or more comments before we wrap up? All right.
Yep.
Thank you.
Coming, everybody.
Thank you. 5:23, and we'll go ahead and adjourn.